just, and you'll get
this meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, you'll get a thing you have to click. Sorry, okay. Sorry, Nicola, what were we saying?
Yeah, commons. And it's fascinating actually that you've picked up on that, because at the moment there's quite a big new movement, the right to roam movement, that is because we can only access 8% of the British landscape, or the English landscape actually, because it's different in Scotland. And it doesn't seem very much. A lot of places you can't go in. There might be footpaths through them, but you're sort of channeled down a narrow path. So it's quite a big thing at the moment, and I tiptoe on the edge of it. I do get a bit involved with it. But what we're doing, I think there's a lot of people, it's a building movement campaigning for more of that sort of access, and to sort of have, I mean, I don't think we'll ever get the commons back that were enclosed going back in time, but there's certainly a movement to increase that land. That's really interesting, because we've also only got access to about 3% of our rivers and riverbanks. So I don't know how that compares.
I don't know what the percentages are either, but some states have more access than others. It really varies. Like Wyoming, we have a lot of access, and we have different levels of access. Like the wilderness, no engines, no motors, things like that can't go in those areas. But then we have Bureau of Land Management, and then we have Forest Service lands, which are much more accessible than the wilderness is. So it is very different, but I don't think Americans could cooperate enough to have something like a commons. If there was firewood without permits, somebody would just come in and take it all. They would just not, they don't believe in sharing.
That's interesting. Hilary, when do you need to leave? Because I'm conscious that you should go next.
I've got 2 minutes, and I must head off. But yeah, I'd just love to say that, Nicola, being familiar with all the areas that you speak about, I grew up in Woolhampton, not far from Greenham, and share many of the memories that you did, particularly about the big galaxies coming over St. Bart's. I think my husband was there, and he can remember the light disappearing when the planes came in, and of course Ink Pen and all that beautiful area, and the sound of a peewit, something that, you know, I learned about my birds through my mum and ladybird books growing up on a farm. And I think you've encapsulated so much of the nature that I love in West Berkshire. It's just a joy to read.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. That means an awful lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hilary.
And I'll leave you with it, but girls, let me know when the next book is. And Nicola, I haven't quite finished yours, but I'm lapping it up. So thank you very much indeed for writing it.
Well, thank you for reading it.
All right, bye everybody. Best wishes.
Bye.
Nicola, how much I know your time is tight tonight as well, so
I'm fine. No, it's fine. Family are quite happy in the house. I'm out here in my hut, so.
Oh, fine. Okay. Shall we just, because if we just go around and everybody say their introductory, first gut feeling about the book, because that's what we normally do, and then I think if we can just fire questions at you, is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So Charlie.
Wow, I always find it really strange when you meet the artist. I brought pictures from people and photographs and expected me to have some sort of response, and it's been really awkward. But it sounds bad, but I did like it, and I liked that it was its own style as well. It wasn't autobiography, it wasn't poetry or nature writing. It was that mix of the two as well. So that's what I liked. And it's quite interesting because my mum's in a care home, and what means a lot to her is her sense of place in nature. And she doesn't go out of her room very much, but she looks out of the window a lot, and we always talk about the trees, and she's got a injured crow that she knows by name, and we talk about the birds and we see what the squirrels do. So it's quite interesting to see that sense, I guess that sense of place and still be meaningful as well. Even if you only got a small amount, it can give you sort of purpose and identity. And I guess for me, because I didn't grow up around here, it fills in some of the gaps of people that I've known that have lived around here, around things like Greenham Common, and I know someone whose mother knew an USM and things like that. So it's quite interesting from that respect as an outsider as well as someone that lives here.
That's wonderful. It's interesting what you say about because I hope it's got a sense of place for that someone can take that idea and take it anywhere. Yeah.
And actually that's something that came from going to US National Park. So we had a ranger who was very keen on sense of place. So
Thanks, Charlie. Chris?
I enjoy can you hear me?
Yeah.
I enjoy the newspaper articles that our author has begun to contribute. As the first one, I read it and I thought it rang a bell in a way. And I got to the bottom and found the name. And I find the writing very evocative. My granddaughter used to work part-time on Saturday morning at Highclere Castle. And I used to sit in the car at the bottom of a Beacon Hill. And when he described the farm and so on, it really brought it back to me. But a point I really like to make is that I don't come from this area, but I come from the north. And where I used to live, there was a great sense of community. And because lots of people like me come and move down to near London and to this area, that sense of community is not as alive as it could be. And I was delighted to get a book that mentioned the community, and it felt more like a community after I read it. When you're writing about Greenham Common and the Newbury bypass and just things I know since I moved here, I found that really nice to have a book about the area. I don't think I'd be the only one.
Thank you, that's wonderful. I think, it is a community, I think, of people that have been here a very long time, for generations, but also plenty of new people. And I think I'm hoping that idea of belonging is that if you engage with a place through its wildlife and its history, then you belong. It doesn't matter where you've come from. But yeah, thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I'm a bit halfway through, but I live in Purley-on-Thames, and I know Pangbourne and Tarleton, so I loved and it brought back so many memories. And it's just I just want to say it's so inspiring because there's so much building in this area, and I have a copse in front of my house, and I have to keep writing letters objecting to planning, and all the memories have inspired me to, I know sometimes tired, you don't feel like it, but the importance of protecting it and keeping it, just even small patches, the wildlife that are in it. It's just, you've inspired me to keep on writing the letters, to keep on preserving a little bit of the area. That's just so important. Thank you.
Gosh, that's your voice is going to cry actually. Because it's more important than ever now. It really, really is, especially what we've got coming with the government, tearing up rules and all sorts of things. And it's those little special places that are really, really important. So that's brilliant. Keep going, keep doing it.
Thank you.
Lou?
I absolutely love the book. It was fantastic, and I've been meaning to read it for a while. And I was just saying to the group, it's the first time I've joined this group, and I joined it because of this book and wanting to discuss the book. I'm a teacher. I put like hundreds of post-it notes in the book, but I'm a photographer, and when I came out of my photography degree, my work was all about, I'm a farmer's daughter, so my work was all about the landscape, British farms, giving up, shutting down week on week, and what was happening to the British landscape, and it was all about that. And I've moved back to where I grew up, so I have this huge sense of place. But when I made the work, I was living in London, so to a certain extent it was about memory and generations of people. And I think not idealizing it because it was a very depressing piece of work, but I've very much lost my, I don't know how to put it. It feels like such a tired landscape now. And, you know, I'm on the Downs in this area of outstanding natural beauty, but it's very heavily farmed. And I think it was interesting reading about these large estates and like you've just been talking about pockets of land, these little pockets that still have, you know, animals that I don't see, birds I don't see up here, even though, you know, there's no houses for 3-4 miles in either direction. So I found it not depressing, it was really enlightening. And I think it was in terms of, you know, I'm wanting to take some of this to a student group I work with. That idea on focusing on the small things and that you can make a small difference. A small difference is enough sometimes. And I think it really makes me, I really worry about, I've got teenage girls, about the fact that it's just this massive, massive problem that seems so all encompassing. And you have to bring it down to what small difference can you make? And I think that the book really kind of brought that across to me.
That's so heartening to hear. I'm doing a workshop. I'm going up to Sheffield tomorrow with the book, and I'm going to do I'm doing talks to the university up there, and also the next day I'm doing a workshop for 11 to 16-year-olds, and I've called it Write to Protest, as in writing to protest. And so much of what you said there is what I want to get across, that it is those, you know, it's we do what we can where we can, and it quite often is those little pockets, those small, you know, little bits of no man's land, the scrub that are really important and are worth fighting for. And we do what we can. We all are busy. Some of it, I mean, I'm not in a position now where I can go and, you know, stay in a tree for days or lie in front of a bulldozer. I mean, I might, but you know, it's you do what you can, and I think that's what's important. It's imperfect activism, isn't it? I think.
And I think trying to engage with people living in more urban environments. I mean, it sounds like most of us live in quite a rural environment, but again, when I was making my degree work in London, and one of my tutors said, you really made me think about the countryside. As far as I've been concerned previously, it was just like pave it all over, you know, what's the point? And you know, that was 25 years ago. I think most people realize we really do need to engage with it. But I teach in Swindon, and I kind of get that same attitude from kids of, well, why should I care? So just trying to get them to engage, really.
Yeah. And I think that you know, we urgently need the countryside in the city. However we, you know, going up to Sheffield, it was famous for its trees. You know, a lot of those were cut down. But I think, I always think if you see, you go to an industrial estate, a shopping centre, you will see blackbirds, and blackbirds are actually a woodland bird, but they show us that we can have woodlands in these places as well, you know, and I think that's really important. Then it would be more relevant, I think, to people that live in urban areas. I don't know, but there's work to be done there, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Melinda and Jane, I know you've said a few things, but is there anything else you'd like to say before I have my
I saw a lot of similarities in what people are doing in the US to try to protect our wild areas. And I'm currently reading The Overstory, which is a book about activism. Yeah. And there's a lot of similarities there, so that it's not unique to one area. We all have to do something.
Yeah, that's really, yeah, so true.
Melinda, was there anything else you'd like to say, Melinda? So I think the way to get people to care is to get them to understand. And I think one of the questions I'd love to ask you, Nicola, are all the facts in the book in your head? Because if they are, you're a bloody genius, because there's so much information in there. Or did you have to research it? But I'll let you answer that in a minute. But I think I mean I've lived here most of my life, but I'm ignorant. I drive around, I say, oh, pretty countryside, but I can't name half the trees. I can't name half the birds. I don't know what the insects are. I have a, you know, and how do we expect kids in Swindon to care about this stuff if they don't know what it is that they're going to miss if it's not there? Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think, and you talk about the process of deciding that you have to name things, you have to understand things. And it was just, I mean, it's biblical, isn't it? I mean, it's Genesis, it's naming the animals, and it's a human thing that we have to do. And I think you have to be able to name it to be able to care about it. And the more you know, the more you care. So I found the book incredibly educational. And going back to Chris's point about community, I think what you were doing is putting a mirror up. It's not only your life, which must have taken a lot of guts, and I know how long it took you to publish this book. I honestly do, and I can understand why. But you put a mirror up to our life here and our countryside. And if people look in mirrors, if the mirrors they're looking at is social media or it's national press, they're never going to see that story. That story then have no significance unless, I mean, this is why I feel the power of the media is so important, because it's a subconscious mirror that people look at. People think that that's me or that's what should be important. And if they don't relate to it at all, they feel kind of less worthy, that their life isn't worth mirroring. So I think that's another really great, amazing thing that you've achieved with this.
Goodness. That does mean a lot. It really does. And I think, oh gosh, several things really. I mean, from the knowledge point of view, I think I've always known, I've always had a real obsession, I suppose, with wildlife, with nature, with that. And I mean, I remember I still got the little tiny pocketbooks that I've had when I was a child. And actually with a book, of course, when you're looking for a species or looking to identify something, you're absorbing all the pages that you're flicking through. But there was a time when it does fall out of your head and you forget. But I think it was the moment after the bypass, I thought, I need to know what's at risk and what we're losing. And then I think for me, having children meant that I could go through it again with them. And I mean, with them, they're very rural children that, although two have gone off to cities, but they probably couldn't name everything, but they know what it is, and that will come back to them. And I think that is important. And it's you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to know what everything is, far from it. But I think if you start with trying, what is that bird? Why does it sound like that? And then trying to find out. There's so many apps as well now. It's like knowing your neighbour's name, isn't it? It makes all the difference. But it is that sort of the whole mirror thing. I mean, I felt that I suppose as a woman, I mean, the world of nature writing has diversifying, which is brilliant because it really needed to, and it really is now. But I think as a woman writing about what is really, I suppose, a rural working class or a rural working life, I think was a story I felt I needed to tell. And I was lucky that the book was picked up.
Well, the timing of it now seems, just spot on, but how did you have to show it to your family first before it was published? Did you feel that you needed their approval?
Yes, I was very worried about that, because it is so personal. And I didn't set out to write a memoir, I really didn't, but I didn't know how to write it without having my experience in there. And I feel it's more a memoir of a place, a love letter to a place, and what has happened to this small part of West Berkshire that is relevant to the rest of the world, which I think most places are in different ways. But yeah, I mean, we living in a tenanted cottage, so we've been here nearly 20 years. Our landlords are the people that are in the book. The gamekeeper, all the characters that are there. bar one, the gamekeeper doesn't live here anymore, but they're all still here. So I was running a great risk of upsetting people, but also losing our home, you know, because that was the crux of it. So my husband read it, and we talked a lot about it. And my middle daughter, she's the more literary one. She's read it. The other two haven't, but only because they're not really into reading very much. Says the school librarian.
Bye, Sam.
Yeah.
So did you make changes after Martin read it? Did you?
I didn't make many. I have to say, because I felt as I was writing it, I really tried to be fair and honest. I tried to. I think being honest was really important to me. And I suppose some things are alluded to rather than spelt out. So there's a bit of a sense of mystery about what happened in some of it. So actually, I didn't. I did go to the editor and say, look, is there any chance that somebody could sue me over this? I relied on their expertise, and you know, they sort of went through it several times and decided that it was safe enough. But I took a few. There were a couple of names that I'd left in that I did take out, but they weren't really, you know, I don't think that was my choice. I don't think it would have made much of a difference.
I just loved your honesty about motherhood. Because, you know, we all need to escape the kids. But I wondered how you might worry about them reading that. Or is it something that's always discussed in your, you know, it's all quite open, mum, oh, mum's just gone off, mum needs to do her thing kind of thing.
I think, yeah, I think they know me very well. I'm very lucky. We're all very close. You know, they will joke sometimes. Oh, there goes wild mother, as I go off into the distance. And the holiday that we had this summer was a little remote cottage.
Oh, from one to another.
And the children were a bit like, really? Can we bring our skateboards? Not really. But we had a lovely time. But I did sort of disappear off because I thought there was a chance of hearing turtle doves, and I sort of wandered off, and my son knew exactly what I was looking for, exactly where to find me when it was time to go. They're very tolerant.
But the stories of, you know, with your son and watching the badger cubs playing at night, and then his joy of finding the otter in Andover. So you just must feel so vindicated, you know.
Yes. I think most of our best memories are of moments that we've spent in nature. You know, they really are, and that could be anything. You know, it doesn't have to be on great hikes up the hills. You know, we really don't go. You know, I do have a passport now, but I haven't yet used it. You know, we're sort of very local, but you know, he'll the messages I get from him. He lives in Bristol now. He's at university, and you know, his campus is at Bath, and he'll message me, I've just seen an owl, you know, and or he'll be watching the because Bath Spa campus you have to go over a cattle grid to get in, which made him groan again. But you know, he'll talk about watching the shepherd work the sheep in the field, and you know, the dog and things like that. So it's a real bond between us all. Yeah, I'm very lucky it hasn't all gone horribly wrong.
Well, it was going to go one way or the other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anybody else got a question for Nicola? Lou, do you want to ask about the difference between the farms and what advice Nicola might have? Or do you think it's a lost cause?
I think a small scale farm and a huge estate are two such different beasts to a certain extent. You you know, and you know, the owner of the estate is not the guy that's working on the land, and it's a very, very different situation. And our farm is no longer farmed by my father, it's farmed by my cousins. It's contracted out now. Although, you know, this year, last year, we've now got, because all the funding's all changing, we now have, you know, big grass strips with wildflowers in them, which is amazing. There's bird feeders out there now. But it makes me I feel slightly impotent, you know. I'm here, but I'm not involved. So I feel like I probably need, you made me feel guilty in places about not being more strident in terms of going out and saying, right, we really do need to sort this out, and taking a little bit more responsibility for it.
I mean, even just taking photographs. I mean, Chris and I are Quakers, and the Quakers, they have something called bearing witness, and it's literally just observing something that's happening. And that simple act is quite powerful. So you could bear witness to the good stuff that's going on. You could take photos of the flowers, but you could,
well, it is. I mean, the only photography I've been doing for a long time, because is that, you know, working with 3 kids, I've just kind of been too busy getting on with my life the last 20 years. But the only pictures I tend to take now are those little Instagram moments when, you know, there's, you know, little beautiful magical moments of weather and light and the landscape. But I've just done a Zoom mindful photography meeting for the last 4 weeks with someone that's written this beautiful book called Mindful Photography, and I really, really enjoyed it, because having said I haven't photographed the landscape in any sort of meaningful way for a long time, she set us challenges, and we had to do a self-portrait, which is a horrifying idea. And I was kind of asking myself if, you know, taking pictures of the world around me, you know, does that count as a self-portrait? And I went out last Sunday with my camera and just looked at everything so differently, because I'd been set this task, and because I made myself slow down, and I made myself just be in the moment. And we had to share our work that week, and I invested far too much thought and effort into it, which I probably shouldn't have done. And they talked a lot about not expecting applause, or just doing it. But I got an awful lot out of that, actually, and produced some work I was really, really pleased with, because it was just about slowing down and being in the moment and being in the landscape. And yeah, so kind of links to what you were saying, Penny, but yeah, it was nice to take a different perspective.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because I'm in lockdown at the weekends, well, particularly in that autumn, I think, where we couldn't go out, when there wasn't much to do, I just used to go out and I used to take photos on my phone and listen to a podcast, and just like flicking back on them now and thinking I notice things in a different way than I do now.
I think it's it is so important, and I think I tend to do it through Twitter as well. You know, with photographs, and I'm no photographer, but you know, photographs of things and little stories that you can tweet with them, and it's just, I mean, I have so little time, it's just ridiculous. You know, family, I know they're older now, but the children, but they still need you, and I've got a full-time job, and my writing's a full-time job, so we all have, I think, or most of us, such busy lives, that it is important. But also, I think if you don't, it's about looking outside of yourself, isn't it? And really just looking at something. And it's that awe and wonder, which is so important to just being alive. And what you mentioned, Penny, about bearing witness, I think that's so important. That's a I don't know if protest is too strong a word, but it's a resistance to loss, and it's a resistance to so many things. That's part of being alive and really living your life. And I think we forget to do it a lot of the time, or we just don't feel that we've got the time. But I hope that's what I do with my writing. It's so important, and whether you do that, you know, through photographs, Instagram, I'd love that. It sounds brilliant.
Are you planning another book? I mean, it's okay. What's your reaction been to the reaction to your book? I'm going to guess you've been a bit gobsmacked.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just seems to have, I mean, I knew, oh gosh, I don't know what I hoped for or expected. And I suppose you hope to see it in bookshops, you hope to, you know, hear back from people that have read it, but it's just built and built and built. It's been a slow builder, because I think it was released this time last year, and there was a huge sort of dam burst of all the books that were held back from COVID, really. And it kind of got a bit lost in this sort of at the beginning. And I'm with a fantastic small indie publisher. They are so supportive. They've just been brilliant. But it's hard as a small indie publisher to get your books, say, for example, in Waterstones, whereas the big publishers can do that. But it's had the most fantastic reviews all over the place. And won the Richard Jefferies Award, which really meant a lot to me, because Richard Jefferies was so writing in the mid-late 1800s, and was a member of the rural workers. He was quite poor to start off with. Really, I think he had a lifetime of poverty, which I haven't had, but you know, there's a difference between money being tight. But there were so many similarities. He had a very difficult, awkward relationship with the gamekeeper as well. So that meant the world to me. And then the Wainwright Prize, which is just a dream come true, to be nominated and then just missing it. So to be highly commended, just amazing. Yeah. So it just fantastic. Very, very grateful.
And now you are, I got an email today, the North Wessex Downs Forum, and there was the Right Honourable Richard Benyon and award-winning nature writer Nicola Chester. So, you know, it might make you cringe, but it will give you more power. I mean, you told me that you feel that the estate owners now take you a bit more seriously where you live. Do you think that's...
I do. There's been a sort of a bit of a change of staff, actually, but the estate manager, the young chap that's mentioned in the book, he's now moved on. He's moved up to Scotland, actually. But yeah, they had a big forestry project that's going to be going on for several years now, which meant that quite legally, quite legitimately, they can fell whole swathes of wood in springtime when it's bird nesting season. Because you can do that if you've got, you know, if it's a working operation, there are ways around it. You can do that. And I'd heard a rumour about this, and before I could sort of make my thoughts known, they were in touch and said, look, we're going to do this thing. We want to involve you, we want to tell you what it's all about. You know, we had conversations about it, and it wasn't something I could stop. It's all legitimate. They've got licenses for it. But the fact that they had that conversation, that they were concerned what I might
say about it,
say or even do. Yeah, and I've got a good relationship with them. That, you know, I can understand why they had to do it. I don't agree with it, but yeah,
they can't change the timing of it. That seems the hardest thing.
So it's so hard. It really is a very difficult one, and much of it is taking the diseased ash trees down, which, you know, is a countrywide problem. But I was able to stop. And this is sort of bearing witness and engaging with the place as well. Very lucky that we have the field across from here. I'm pointing at it, just over there. I put a barn owl box up in a tree a couple of years ago, and I knew they were around, but to my astonishment, the pair moved in. So when the chainsaws started up nearby, I thought, oh, this isn't right. That's a Schedule 1 listed bird, so you cannot legally disturb that bird at any time of year. So I went to work that morning with the sound of the chainsaws ringing in my ears, and phoned them and said, look, there's a barn owl. And by the time I got home, silence. They'd gone to another wood. And they cordoned off a great sort of swathe around this barn owl. So you know, and that's because you, I know it's there, and it's that sort of that bearing witness is really, really important. Yeah.
Well, you just need to put barn owl nests across the whole bloody estate, and then they won't be able to do anything.
Not the easiest thing, but it would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Barn owl bomb the place. Yeah. So, Nicola, we've talked over the years, and you've given talks in Hungerford about your passion and your concerns about what's happening in your backyard. And I've said to you in the past, I'm going to say it again, what help can we give you to fight these battles? Is it very hard with a private estate like this for the public opinion to get involved? Have we got no right to make an opinion on what they do?
I think it isn't easy, but I think it's building that momentum. I think it's like right now we've got there's a whole chapter in the book about the Red Wings and the field fairs that are coming in now. So if you step out tonight, wherever you are, you could be probably not in the US, I'm not sure the US, but certainly in the UK. It doesn't matter whether you're in a town centre or the countryside, you can hear the birds migrating in at night, and they come from Northern Europe. They come for the berries on all our hedges. At the same time that so many farmers are out with flail cutting the hedges. And, you know, I do feel some sympathy for the farmers. I mean, you have to keep your roads safe and the road corners and all that sort of thing. It goes without saying. However, there are plenty of places we can leave those berries on the hedges until they've gone, you know, even till January, February. And then hopefully you have a nice hard frost so you can get the tractor on the land to cut the hedges, because that's another problem. And I think it's about it's engaging those people in those conversations, you know, and doing it gently and I hate confrontation, bizarrely, I really do. So it's about having a gentle.
But I think it goes back to education. I've just remembered you did this talk in Hungerford Library and you mentioned the swifts. Yeah. Well, I've been completely unaware of them. I went out of that building that night after you talked, and I looked up and I could see them, but they had been invisible to me up until that point. So, and it's the same what you've said, the field fairs and what have you. I have no idea what you're talking about, but now you've told me what to look for.
And it's listening. It's a really fun. It's like a and you can hear it as they go over. But okay. I think that's it. I think we've got a massive battle on our hands at the moment with the government have these investment zones. So it's almost at the moment you will be able to build anywhere, whether you're an AONB on the edge. I don't even know if national parks are safe, but our farming for wildlife schemes have been thrown out the window. It is all really rather terrifying. So I think, you know, joining those charities if you can, supporting them in any way that you can, the RSPB, the Woodland Trust, the Wildlife Trust, and just spring. I mean, we've got Autumn Watch, I think, is on the telly probably now, actually tonight. It starts this week. Watch and, you know, enjoy that. And there's so much to learn from that as well. And just, I think, just be curious. Just ask yourself, what on earth is that? And try and open up all your senses and notice things. And that's when you can, you know, you can go and find out. And it makes explorers and pioneers of us all, I think, in that way. It doesn't matter, you know, how old we are. It's a wonderful thing to do.
So Autumn Watch, thank you. Yes. Or, you know, if you, I'm yeah, Chris?
Can I come off message for a while?
What, off?
Can I come off message for a while?
Oh, we'll change the topic.
Nicola, forgive me. I bought a couple of books because I'd seen a review. And when I heard that we had our American friends here tonight, my heart leapt, because they're by an American author. And I'd just like to, whether they would recommend her or not. I'm not recommending because I haven't read the book yet. And the author is called Elizabeth Strout, Strout. And I wonder if they could just comment as if they know her and what she's like.
No, they're shaking their heads.
Oh,
I've heard of
okay.
her, but
Well,
I've
you-
not read.
We'll wait to hear from you, Chris, what you think of her.
It's a name I think I recognise. I'm just looking, but maybe I don't.
She's very popular, but I have not read her yet.
There's a book called Oh William.
Okay.
She's
I'm
been
just,
shortlisted for Booker Prize.
I'm just sort
Has
of
been in the
Googling
past.
her now.
Sorry about that, it's completely.
You have to get that off your chest. Well, Nicola, I really encourage you to keep educating us. I mean, on your social media, and if you could just, take a little video of, this is what you should listen for field fairs, and spoon feed us information, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was sat here a couple of nights ago, and I'd been out to watch the fallow deer because they're rutting at the moment. It's all very exciting, and they're big deer. I'll show you. Actually, I've got antlers like this. Actually, yeah, it's huge, and they're almost like I mean, I know moose are much bigger, but they've got that sort of flat antler like a moose has. But I've been up on the hill to see them, and funny enough, I saw one big fallow buck, and they're the size of a small pony. They're huge, and he'd come down to the wood behind our house, which I've not seen them that low before. But anyway, I was sitting typing away in my hut, and I thought, I can hear him, and I could hear him grunting and making this. It's the most uncanny noise. It's sort of a cross between a pig and a bellow. It's the weirdest noise. But I thought to myself, I mean, I haven't got many neighbours, but I thought if they go out tonight, they're going to wonder what on earth that is. It just sounds like such an ancient sound, and it's yeah. I mean, so I did actually record that and put it on Twitter.
Oh, cool. It's just reminded me of the scene in the book where you've got your kids and you've got this herd of deer that come charging at you. Oh my gosh.
Yes, that was quite a moment.
And you just stood your ground, and they just parted around you. Yeah,
there was nothing I could do. I just could, I think if I'd have tried to go left or right, I just had to sort of stand and let it come past. Hope it did.
Wow. Do the kids haven't been traumatized by deer?
No, not at all.
Gosh, well, thank you so much. I don't know if anybody's got any final comments or questions for Nicola. She's on Twitter, Nicola Writing. You've got 8,000 followers now. That's she's and you do a column in the Newbury Weekly News every week, and people can sign up to your emails, can't they? So you get the column by email.
Yes, I've actually got quite behind with it, but I do have so I've got a web page which is just Nicola Chester WordPress. But if you just put Nicola Chester in, you can find it. And I do try and put my columns on, but I've got quite behind with it. But I must do that. But there'll be links to other things that I've written on there as well. I'm a Guardian country diarist as well. I had one in the Guardian on Friday, which was quite an emotional one, let's just say. And you can find that through that website or online as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for joining us. This is the first time we've had an author on a call.
It's been lovely. It's such a privilege to, and I'm quite prepared for people to go, I hated it. But you've all been absolutely lovely. It's a real privilege. So thank you.
Thank you. And just quickly, are you planning on writing another book?
Yes, I am. And it's all up here. It's all perfectly written up here. But I'm just trying to carve out the time at the moment. I do write between the gaps of everything else. But it is locally set again, but I've got a diary. I wonder if I can show it to you. No, I haven't got it in here. But it's a diary that was published of a woman that farmed locally during the war years, and she sort of took the farm from horse to tractor and brought the community with her. Really inspirational woman. But by the time I wanted to be a farmer, sort of going back to the 1980s, it just wasn't possible. It seemed to me, I tried and tried, and it was just like, women shouldn't be doing that. So I wonder how we went so far backwards. It's it's about trying to tune into those ghostly voices that I feel like I hear sometimes. So that's the general idea anyway.
That sounds brilliant. Lovely. Well, thank you, Nicola. We'll let you go and we'll just have a quick chat about what our next book will be.
Okay. All right. Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye. Cool. Good. Well, that was I mean, I was wondering if anybody would have anything negative to say about the book, or and I genuinely think she would have been happy to hear it, so don't feel shy. She just generally said, but I can't think of anything actually critical to say about it. Yeah, cool. So next time, in Karen's email, there was a short list of titles that we've discussed before. Does anyone have a particular preference?
I think any of them would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to root for then one of Vanessa LaFay's books, which are set in Florida. She was from Florida. She lived locally until she died about 5 years ago. And they are separate stories, but one's like I think she did one and then she wrote like the prequel of it. But it doesn't really matter which order that you read them in. So if I would you like me just to read a synopsis? Bear with me 1 second. This is, how did you get Nicola Chester's book in the States if it's not in print? Did you get it online?
I did. It was on a used book selling site online. Okay.
So you got it shipped, and did it come from the UK or was it?
No, it was somebody had it in the US, so I'm assuming somebody brought it.
Okay. So the two books she wrote, one is called Summertime, and it seems to be on Amazon, and this is the first book that she wrote, and it's about a small town of Heron Key. Oops, sorry, I've just managed to lose the tab. Sorry, I've done this. Well, if people are on computers, they can. So Vanessa LaFaye, which is one word, LaFaye, and it's about what happens when a huge hurricane hits this small town in Florida, and what happens to the Black community in the town as the town is preparing to protect themselves from the hurricane. So it's a race story, and it's a real story that's had never really been retold, and that's why she chose the story. And then the second one she wrote has some of the characters, but from a previous incident in history. It's called At First Light, and this is also set in Florida, and it's when a Cuban lady, a mixed race Cuban lady, arrives in Key West because she's been exiled from Havana, and it's her story along with a a damaged war hero, American war hero, who comes back from the First World War, and it's what's happened. It's the story is what happens to them in a very kind of again a very racist society. It's called At First Light. Meet Alicia Cortez, survivor, healer, ... murderer ? And yeah, so both absolutely brilliant. So does anyone have a hurricanes, or the first one's about hurricanes, the second one's about well, I'm going to tell you, it's their battle with the Ku Klux Klan.
My preference is for the Ku Klux Klan one, but only because I've read the other one. But I'd be happy to read the other one again.
Do you agree it's a good recommendation?
Definitely a good recommendation, and very gripping at the end as well, from what I can remember. So it'd be good to read it more slowly.
Okay, so given that Charlie's already read Summertime, is everyone happy if we go with At First Light? Yeah. I think I've got a copy of it, Chris, if you want to. I mean, I will reread it, but if anybody struggles to find it, I have got a copy of it, but hopefully it should be fine. Seems to all be, and there are Kindle and audio versions as well. Lovely. Oh, so a date. Should we stick with, this is Tuesday, isn't it? Should we stick with Tuesdays? They seem to be good for everyone. You think we can fit another one in before Christmas? Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, middle of December. We kind of allow 6 weeks. How about the 13th of December? Yeah,
That sounds good.
lovely. And Chris, let us know how you find your book.
I will.
Which one are you going to read, Chris?
Sorry?
Which one are you going to read?
Well, the ones, Elizabeth Strout.
Yeah.
And I got two because they're a sequel. The first one's called Oh William, and the second one is called Lucy by the Sea.
Okay. So I was searching her, and I've read My Name is Lucy Barton.
Sorry?
I was searching for her on the internet, and I've read My Name is Lucy Barton by her, but I can't remember much about it. So I'd be interested to hear what you think of the other two.
Yes, I just read the reviews and I thought it looked interesting.
Great. Well, maybe that can be, if you get on with it, Chris, that could be our next book for the new year.
When were you suggesting we had the meeting? I'm sorry, I was going to write it down and I got...
Tuesday, the 13th of December.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so is everyone all right? Life is all right? Karen, how are you coping? You all right?
Everything's good, thank you.
Cool. Glad, so good to see Jane and Melinda back. I was worried we'd lost you last month. If you know anybody else who'd like to join us, we don't mind being outnumbered by Americans. No, we wouldn't probably. But Lou, how have you found this? Your first book club experience? I don't know if this is how book clubs are meant to be run, but we've just kind of made it up as if we've gone along.
No idea. I've really enjoyed it, and it was obviously fantastic meeting Nicola as well. So that was amazing.
Well, we could think about it. Obviously, it won't work with Vanessa, but we could think about choosing another local author if we'd like to have that experience. So if anybody reads anything locally.
Have you read A Country Parish?
No.
That's brilliant.
Was that by the Vicars?
Yeah. Well, the vicar, one of them.
Vicar, yeah,
Colin.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm afraid he doesn't qualify for this group because he's a man. We only read.
Oh,
authors.
okay.
Yeah. And I don't see a reason to change that. It makes I think it makes it a bit different, don't you? But if you've got a copy, Lou, that you don't need anymore, I'd love to borrow it.
Yeah.
Lovely. Good. Well, great to see everyone. Thanks, Karen, for keeping the ship afloat. And we did talk about actually publishing the list of all the books we have read, didn't we? And I was going to do that on my website.
But they got little reviews next to them.
We haven't gone that far, have we?
Or in preferential order.
No, the trouble is not everybody likes the same book.
Yeah.
So we'll have some meetings where there's a real difference of
Oh,
opinion.
really?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us liked conversations with friends. That is probably.
And do you plough on through, or have you reached a stage in life where you think, actually, life's too short, I'm not going to finish it?
I think we have had some people who've given up on books. Yeah.
I read something great the other day about someone who said they'd given themselves permission to stop reading a book if they weren't enjoying it.
It's like walking out of a film if you're not
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the book group, you're kind of, you want to finish so you can talk, understand what other people are talking about.
Yeah.
That's incentive to finish it, even if you don't like it.
Yeah, because it's boring listening to people talking about something you don't know what they're talking about. So, yeah, good, lovely. Well, I'll stop recording this and then I'll send it to Freya. I don't think there's any need to publicize it any wise. I mean, if Nicola comes back to me and says, oh, actually, that would be really useful if people could see it, then would anyone have a problem if it was put out there? No, happy with that? Okay. Lovely, great. Well, good evening, everyone. And see you in about 6 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
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 Cool. Bye, Chris.